everybody. Welcome to Obscure Animation. This is the podcast where every month we get together and talk about an independent, obscure, underappreciated animated film that we feel like talking about because we love animation. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and I'm joined every month by my good friend Stanford.
Hi, how's it going?
Yes. So I am very curious to talk with you about this film.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah. So what we're talking about this month is The Night is Short, Walk On Girl by the anime director Masaki Yuasa. And this is a very, very unique film that definitely is not going to be for everybody. But I think that it was pretty exhilarating for me actually when I first saw it because it's so different, and so I don't know, it's just so visually. If there was ever a movie that I was willing to sort of excuse a lot just by how beautiful it was, it's this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because obviously I don't drink alcohol at all. So it's not an experience that I can connect with that's happening. But I mean, I certainly was young and pretty independent, so I guess I can relate to that part of it. But it's more just sort of the boldness and unique nature of the animation that's just so beautiful and colorful and fun that really captured my attention and really delighted me. And so we'll talk more about that. And I actually, when I first saw it, I was pretty skeptical because we'll talk about more about Masaki Yuasa because I had seen his other film. He had two films in 2017, and I had seen his other film called Lou Over the Wall at Sundance. And this was actually 2018 for us. And I'd seen it at Sundance and I hated it. It was too spastic, and I felt like the story was very derivative of Ponyo. And so I don't know, I didn't like that one at all. And this one I just liked way, way, way better. And so it's an interesting thing. And he actually on the 19th, there's another one of his movies coming out in February called Ride That Wave, which looks really really beautiful and fun. And so I am looking forward to getting to see that next week. So yeah, he definitely has a lot. He produces a lot of films for he has actually two films coming out in 2020. Well, I mean, technically it was 2019, but and then he has a I don't know if it's an episode of the series or if it's a movie, but Yunuo, the anime. Anyway, he has the next year he has that coming out, but it's not uncommon for him to direct two movies a year.
2 movies in 1 year. Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive. And
well, it is. I think so too. And
yeah.
Also, just given the nature of at least of Night is Short, Walk On Girl that we're going to be talking about. I mean, it's an elaborate film in a lot of ways. I mean, just to start artistically.
Yeah.
Say. Yeah.
So what did you think about this movie?
Well, it was really an interesting film. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I want to dissect it with you. But this is my first film of Masaki Yuasa's that I've seen, and I don't consider myself an anime pro by any stretch of the imagination. You're the one who always introduces me to these interesting anime films, for which I'm grateful, because I think so much of it too, I just often don't know where to go other than, of course, like Studio Ghibli, which I adore. But one thing that I thought was so interesting about this film versus the Studio Ghibli, because I've seen most all Studio Ghiblis, if not all of them, all of their films from that studio. But this film, I mean, part of it was the grown-up subject matter, but also that it was focusing on, I mean, even though it was very fanciful as far as its artistic vision and representate, of the art that's being placed before you as you're watching it, it's really grounded in reality. It's
Yeah.
not the Studio Ghibli films are, so many of them are really fanciful. I mean, there's some kind of a
Yeah.
big, just dare I say, a fantasy element to them, if that's
Sure. Yeah.
if that's
Definitely.
fair.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. I mean, because you've got like spirits and dragons and
yeah,
houses that come alive and things like
right,
that.
and things
And
like that. And this is just, this all takes place, what, kind of like within a 12-hour period.
yeah, I mean, and she would have alcohol poisoning, I think,
Oh
by
my
the
gosh, they
this is
all
a
would.
lot,
I mean, they. I
but
was
so
gonna
in that
say,
sense, it's not like super realistic in that sense, but in
no.
the
But
sense of
how could they even walk?
yeah,
After all of that alcohol they consume.
yeah,
And I'm with you. I mean, I'm with you. I don't drink either, but holy smokes, they were
yeah,
downing so much alcohol in
yeah.
this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I should have actually kept track of
I know. I was
everything.
thinking that too. I was like, how many drinks has she had?
Yeah, yeah,
How many
and
bars did she go to in one night? I mean,
yeah,
unbelievable.
she can definitely hold her liquor.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Not only hold her liquor, but get from place to place.
Right? Yeah.
And go shopping for books and other things,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting. So you asked
And then
that.
it's a romance too, Rachel, which I thought
Yes.
was really interesting too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry to
That's true.
interrupt you.
No, no, that's very true. And Yuasa, I guess, was asked to give some examples of animated works that have been an influence on him. And he said the first thing on the list was, he said, a film by Tex Avery. So that's a kind of interesting. And I think because Tex Avery, of course, is famous for Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And you can definitely see, I think, that influence in this movie for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm. And then he has a film, another by Ladislav Starevich, and he was a Polish Russian stop motion animator. So that sounds like somebody we might want to check out in future obscure
Yeah.
animation.
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, and then Yellow Submarine, which you can definitely see all over as far as the colors
Oh,
and the yeah.
the backgrounds and all that stuff. Yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
all over the place. Yeah, for sure.
And then he has Fantastic Planet, which is a very abstract film, sci-fi film from the 70s. So we probably should talk about that eventually as well.
Yeah.
I have it on Criterion. So
Oh,
I know,
see,
it's pretty exciting.
which mean I would too, because I've subscribed to Criterion Channel, and I haven't. Uh, I haven't. That's a film I haven't seen either.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
count me in.
It's pretty interesting. And then there's The Fox and the Hound he had listed, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, then a movie called The Wrong Trousers, which is in 1993. It's a Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, I was gonna
short.
say, is that the Wallace and
Yeah.
Gromit short?
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. Then he had listed a Batman pilot that they did, I guess. That was it says a Batman pilot from Lightbox Animation. And then 1971 film that came out of Toei Daga film called Alibaba to Yonjipuki no Tozoku, something like that. So there's that. And an episode of Lupin the Third, which is a detective series.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and then anyway, there were a couple other anime people. So I don't know, I thought that was really interesting. You can see some of those influences throughout this film, I think.
Well, and I really admire that list, and yeah, that does make sense. As still processing through watching this film.
Yeah.
But and I just admire so much that these filmmakers really have expanded their vision, to see all this different stuff. I really respect that, and I want to do better myself, being able to see different,
Yeah.
different things, different genres, different filmmakers from different locations, and it just, I think
Yeah.
it really expands your vision.
I mean, I am the queen of formula films. I mean, I've saw 115 Christmas movies. It's like I'm
Yeah,
saying. So I do respect a well-told formula film, but there is something that's very exciting about sitting in a theater and seeing something completely unique. And that's not like obnoxious about being unique. Like that's the problem sometimes you have at Sundance where you're just like, kill me now. This is the worst. And
exactly.
I didn't do the animation spotlight for Sundance this
Uh,
year, but I usually go to it almost
I have the
kind of
worst
out of
experience at
obligations, and
those. I
they
hate those.
yeah, they are the worst.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
so hard for me to sit through.
I've been 3 times to the animation spotlight, and every time I could probably, out of all 3 times, there's probably been maybe 2 that I've liked out of
Yeah,
the whole all 3, because there's so many people that are just like trying to be edgy and trying to be and it's just so cringeworthy and so like, ugh. Like there was one last year about this woman who ends up meeting some guy at a concert and then goes on like these benders, and things just spiral, and it wasn't interesting visually, it wasn't interesting story wise, it wasn't interesting character wise, it didn't even have good music. I just felt it was just, and it felt so long. I was just like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
oh. And
And,
yeah, so like I feel like when you sit behind something where it really excites you, and you admire its creativity, but you don't feel like it's almost like flipping you off in creativity, if that makes sense. Like,
oh,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And that's what one of the things I thought was so interesting about this film is that it's so creative and so out there, but it doesn't flip you off.
right.
It feels really, gosh, I'm sorry for lack of a better word, it just feels authentic. And even though
Yeah,
I know nothing about bar crawling in Tokyo,
yeah,
I mean, I know literally
yeah,
nothing. Yet
yeah,
it just felt like, wow, this was such an interesting view into this world,
yeah.
eh, and into these, and what an interesting way to tell this story.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of sweet. There's a
Oh, it's
sweetness
totally
to it.
sweet.
Yeah.
There is.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
which again I think really helps because I was wondering, okay, is this gonna go dark? Is
Yeah,
this like,
right.
is this gonna go? And it doesn't. And yeah,
Yeah. So
really cool
basically,
film.
the story is you have this girl named Kohai, and she's finished school, and for the time being at least, and she's very excited, and so she decides that she's going to go out and plunge into the adult world, and she's going to have this epic night of drinking, and and then there's also this guy named Senpai, and he has been he's been in love with Kohai since the first grade, and he has this Operation Aho, he calls it, and he sets up this system, this plan, where he's going to be wherever she is. uh like if she's at the library, oh look at that, we bumped into each other at the library.
Yeah.
and and I guess like it could be kind of seen as slightly stalkerish, but it's done in kind of a cute way.
It's cute. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, I just liked it because he's so interested in her, and he's just trying to figure out a way,
yeah,
to make it work. And she's just kind of off doing her own thing and isn't oblivious to it,
yeah.
right?
So
But
yeah.
I love that scene where I mean, in the opening where we meet them both. Isn't that neat
Mhm.
how that
Yeah,
was done in
yeah.
that kind of bar restaurant thing?
I think so, and I love when it's just sort of it has these moments where it kind of goes into more abstract, and it's just kind of like there's hardly even any border on the characters. It's just like these sort of colors, and
Yes.
that it kind of when they're kind of dreaming or reminiscing or something like that. It's really pretty, and I just love the vibrancy of the colors throughout,
Yeah,
the reds.
the colors
Uh-huh.
are really striking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the oranges and the yellows,
the
and
yellow. Yeah.
she has a red sweater on, and you
Hmm.
really see it just pops. It really pops. And so he has this plan that he's going to kind of follow her through the night, but they keep getting separated, so you see sort of his night and her night till they finally kind of meet up.
Yeah.
And so uh she says, the adult world is awaiting. She's very excited, and she basically meets this creepy guy named Toto
Toto, what a creep.
at the bar. Yeah, she gets a pina colada. That's drink number one. uh, and she punches him in the face, which I was a big fan of.
Yeah, I mean, she's just not messing around, you know,
No,
and I like that about her too.
yeah. And so she meets two people who are like, yeah, girl, you punched him in the face. And it's Gucci and Hanuki. And so they were like, yeah, that's awesome. Way to go. And so basically they kind of are sort of wedding crashers, kind of,
Yeah.
for a little while. They go to like these different parties and basically bum drinks off people
Yes.
for the next part. And there's this bizarre scene where she kind of invents this dance or
That
initiates this dance.
that dance thing.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's weird, but then I'm also thinking they're all so drunk that it kind of makes sense, you know. I mean, and that
Yeah.
is like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's called the Sophists Dance is what it's called. And it's kind of like doing the what do they, when you're in elementary school and you play like you do like the crab walk kind of thing where
That's
you're on
exactly
your
what it
back,
is.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what it's kind of like. And and then there's a whole section where it becomes really trippy. And there she's hallucinating
Yeah, I was
basically.
gonna say it's just these hallucinations, right? And really
Yeah,
effectively done
yeah,
with the animation. Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. And I guess she has this whole drinking game with Ria Haku, a supernatural being, and she wins. And I think this was, I was, after I finished watching, I'm like, how the heck are we going to cover this on the podcast? Because as much as we're talking about the plot, because that's really the only way that we can, it's really completely irrelevant. The plot is irrelevant to this movie. It's all about the visuals and the characters.
Hmm.
And so you really kind of have to see it to
Yeah, it's more of an
appreciate it.
it's more of I felt it was more than of an experience
Yeah.
than it was necessarily a story. Although I did like the romantic comedy element
Yeah.
of it, but that's not like, even though that's like the foundation, is not the focus. If that makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess you could kind of think of it as something kind of Alice in Wonderland-ish a little bit. The way
yeah,
that Alice kind of meets, there's not really a plot to Alice. There's a series of
the
people
series
that
of
she meets,
events.
a series of
Yeah,
characters,
mhm,
yeah, that she meets along the way to her finally getting home.
mhm.
And so it's kind of similar in that way. Like
Oh yeah, for
it's
sure.
she meets one thing after another thing, and she walks through a lantern festival, and I really love the animation
Oh,
in
beautiful.
that scene.
Yeah.
Was beautiful. And you see uh there's a whole section that's really beautiful where you see basically like flowers and birds that are coming out of the alcohol, because she's like at that in that phase, I
Hmm.
guess. And then there's a whole scene where she basically challenges, it's basically like Marion in Raiders of the Lost Ark, except for she's got her beat.
Oh,
You know,
she's got the whole room beat.
yeah.
You know.
But there's an old man who says, "Oh, you can't drink as much as me," and so she outdrinks the old man, and you can really see, particularly with the flowers and the birds, you definitely see that Yellow Submarine influence
That's exactly what
on
it
him.
felt like. Yeah, because it's so trippy, yeah, really beautiful. And as I was watching it too, it's just like, I just not sure if I've seen something like this
Yeah.
before. I mean, clearly reminiscent of Yellow Submarine in that style, but wow, really,
Yeah.
really unique.
Yeah. I mean, even though I had seen one of his other films, it's different than this. I mean, he definitely has, in Lou Over the Wall, he definitely has some of the same visual style, but I would say that one isn't quite as anachronistic as this one is. That and I prefer this much more than that. But it so I agree. I don't think I've even seen, and it looks like this Ride the Wave, that looks also a little bit more grounded, less surreal.
Yeah,
So this is really unique.
I've seen some pictures from Ride the Wave. I think I've
Yeah.
seen them on social media,
Yeah.
advertising it. But I not knowing anything about it, I really wouldn't even have associated with that as director.
Yeah.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
After seeing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really, really unique and beautiful, and I think I can't overstate just how bright the colors are in it. Like the reds and the yellows and the purples and
Mm-hmm.
they're just so bright.
Yeah.
It looks really great. And so anyway, then she goes and she finds this whole organization, this like club, that their job is to find unreturned books. And so this is like Mr. Bookman on Seinfeld. This is like,
Exactly.
and so there's kind of this whole thing with that, and then those students then tell Senpai that, oh, she was here, and so because he's kind of lost track of her, and then uh, the I was reading one thing that basically said that it's kind of one of the themes of the movie is about chance meetings and also just sort of embracing a youthful spirit, is what they said.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I think that's definitely true.
Yeah.
Sort of the unpredictability of life.
Which, yeah, I think that's the perfect description, because that was the thing that also really stood out to me, Rachel, was that, again, because most of my anime experience is more of a more fantasy style films. This is just, even though very, very artistic, it's a slice of life. It's just like, this is kind of 12 hours in the life of this young woman, and in a way it's kind of life changing. In a way it's like it's 12 hours in the life of, in her life, and I think what an unusual subject matter for an animated film too, but I think it really works.
Yeah, I mean, it's really true if you think about this it was, I think it was on this video that I sent you is where I got this, is and he says, we wouldn't be the people we are without the people we meet along the way.
Yes.
So many of those friendships are equally random. And I think that's really true. I mean, if you look at our friendship, I mean, we happened to meet because we had a fellow blogging friend, Mark Brown, and who then connected us because he knew we were both in Utah. And then we both went and saw All About Eve together. And then we ended up becoming friends. I mean, if you think of all the different pieces that had to go into play in order for us, that we had to meet through this random person in Florida.
Exactly.
It's pretty amazing. And I think almost all relationships are usually like that.
They're kind of like that, aren't they? I mean, we look at our friends and
because like, I mean, you think of my brother, for instance, and sister-in-law, he happened to be at a party in Vancouver She was a friend of one of his friends, and they happened to meet at that party. And I mean, he's from Utah. Like, what are the chances that they would happen to be at that same party at that same day? That all that stuff. And that's why I'm always, for the Hallmarkies podcast, when we're talking, and people are like, "Oh, it's so unrealistic," and I'm like, "No, it's not really. I mean, it can be how it's done, but if you talk to almost anybody about whether it's a friendship or a romance, the stories, you'd be like, if you saw them in a movie, you'd be like, oh, that can happen. That's too
Right.
unrealistic, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well said. Yeah.
Things just happen to work out, or if you believe in spirituality, God makes them work out, or whatever you happen to believe. But it's pretty interesting, and so then the she gets tested there's like a spicy drink, and that's kind of a fun sequence.
Yeah.
If she will drink the spicy drink, and then also Senpai, he tries to find this special book of hers, that she loved from her childhood. And then we find out that they both kind of run into this play. It's a guerrilla production, a guerrilla play, and it actually kind of becomes a musical for a little bit of the movie with this play. And yeah, and it's fun. I enjoy it. And she ends up, as a reward for being in the play, she gets a fish jacket.
I mean, it's like, okay.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
It's like, wow. Big night that's happening here.
That's right, big night. And then she also plays a kind of a red spirit or red god for time too. So she has that. And then the whole guerrilla play basically gets arrested. They get broken up. And so you have an old man who's dying, and he tells Kohei, he says, take advantage of the time you have while you have it. And that's when Senpai says, I followed you as you told your story. I saw you tell your story. And so then they meet together for lunch, and that kind of ends the movie. But yeah, I think that's really cute that I saw you tell your story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is cute, and I'm glad that they get together. I mean, you hope so, because they're.
Yeah.
I mean, he is stalking her, but they're passing crossing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just even though he's making that happen. But so I was glad that I was just, please get together, because even though the thing is so random, as you said, it's like it kind of this big design that works out for them.
There's a thing on How I Met Your Mother called the Dahmer versus Doppler effect.
Yeah.
And what it basically is saying is that, like, if somebody you like that's doing something romantic, it's like Lloyd Dobler playing the music outside, you can say anything, it's super romantic. But if it's somebody you don't like, the very same action is like Jeffrey Dahmer. And super creepy. And that is very true.
Yeah.
And
that is the truism for sure.
I joke in the Hallmarkies podcast, I call them Hallmarker horror moments. I'm like, you could have the exact same scene, and if you had a different score, it would be a horror movie. So
that's perfect.
Yeah, and especially I think the movie that is the most like that is a movie called Bed of Roses. I don't know if you've ever seen it or heard of it, but it stars Christian Slater, and anyway, and he like stands outside the window of this lady and just like stares at her for I mean,
he's like super stalker, like super.
And he sends her like her whole apartment is full of roses, like probably $2,000 worth of roses. And I mean, he is a florist, but still, it's a lot. And anyway, that one is the most most creepy of any romance I think I've ever seen. But because you like the people, or they're trying to get you to like the people,
Yeah.
then you can hopefully forgive it. But yeah, that one's really weird. And then also I think that Never Been Kissed is super weird.
Yes.
Because you have this, this adult woman pretending to be in high school and like getting the hots for the teacher. And you're
Yeah.
like, this is awkward.
That's fair. I agree with you. Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, but this, I am full Doppler for Senpai. I'm fine with him. And but man, she's gonna have such a hangover.
Oh my gosh. I can't even believe they were still standing. I mean, get halfway through the movie, let alone by the end, the next day. But it's the movies. So
that is going to be a headache for. It's going to be rough
for days for all of them. Wowza.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I'm glad you did too. It was definitely, there's sometimes when I'm like pretty sure that you'll like it, but then there's other times I'm like, like, don't be mad at me if you don't like it.
No, I'm not ever gonna be mad. I was happy to. I was happy to see it, and just gonna see a really different kind of anime. Really different for me.
For sure. Well, if any of you listening, if you've seen The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, let us know what you thought, because we would love to hear your thoughts, because it's just really different and really unique. And so, let us know in the comment section or on Twitter. That would be great. And and I'll have to let everybody know what I think of Ride Your Wave, which is next week. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, is that a Fathom event, Rachel?
Yes, Fathom event. Well, only one day. It's not even a 2-day.
Okay.
It's just it's the 19th. So you gotta, if you want to see it, then you gotta see it on Wednesday. But anyway, Sam, let us know what you think. And Stanford, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Stanford Clark, and I have a blog and podcast at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So make sure to check that out, and make sure you're following the podcast, all over social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate it. And then also, if you're listening on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It means so much to us. We have our Patreon group, which is really fun. We do giveaways and exclusives, and it's a lot of fun. And then we also have our merch store where you can get Animation Junkie shirts and other designs, and it's really a lot of fun. So check that out. And thanks again, Stanford. This was a lot of fun. And
hey, thank you.
We'll talk to you all next month. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.